Of course, the entire week that we've had this vehicle to test and review, it's been beautiful outside, nice and sunny, and the night before we have to film the review, it's nasty outside. Whatever, let's just get into it. So this week was actually July 4th weekend, and I took the family down to Glen Rose, Texas, Granbury, Texas, and we did a big July 4th family hangout there. And I specially requested this Expedition for that so that I could fit the entire family in this vehicle and have room for luggage. And of course, we're driving in style and comfort. So this is the 2020 Ford Expedition Max King Ranch. We're going to talk about the different trims that the Expedition is offered in. We'll take a look around the exterior of this vehicle. We'll look at the hatch, we'll look under the hood, we'll look inside, we'll take it for a drive. But first, enjoy this B-roll segment. All right, so for the 2020 Expedition, there are basically 4 trim levels offered. You have the XLT, the Limited, the King Ranch, and the Platinum is the top of the line. Every one of those trims have the regular size Expedition and a Max version. So we're driving the Max King Ranch. The Max gives you basically an extra 17 cubic feet of cargo storage in the rear, which we'll talk about when we check out the rear of this vehicle. But first, let's check out the exterior of this vehicle, starting with the front end here. You have LED headlamps with signature LED lighting. We also have nice LED fog lamps on the King Ranch. The front grille here is special to the King Ranch and has a stone gray mesh. And overall, I really like the design of the front end. I like the new design of the headlights and its big, imposing front end. Moving along to the side of the vehicle, you can see this big, imposing SUV that the Expedition is, and that extra room in the rear that the Max has. And there is a lot to talk about and a lot going on the side here, but it's definitely worth appreciating that size and that overall profile. So one of the things you do get is body colored door handles with satin aluminum inserts. We get power running boards here and power folding mirrors with an integrated turn signal. So just like a lot of luxury vehicles, this thing has running boards to help get up into it, and they are power folding, so as you open the door, they come out and you can easily step into this vehicle. And these power folding mirrors are great, especially for such a big vehicle. So when you lock the door, they power fold in. It is a wide vehicle, so having those mirrors fold in definitely helps with not getting hit on the side through parking lots and stuff like that. Always a great luxury touch for vehicles, especially big, wide vehicles. And another thing that I like, this does have a 360 camera. We'll talk about when we get inside, but the camera is mounted here and not on the mirror itself. So if you fold in the mirrors, you can still see a perfect 360 and a perfect side of your vehicle without it being distorted like you can on some vehicles. Really smart. Next up on the side, you have the King Ranch badge, established 1853. If you don't know, King Ranch is a ranch in Texas, where Ford collaborates with them, helping them design and develop vehicles that can be used on an actual ranch. Next up, we have those 22-inch painted machine-faced aluminum wheels with the King Ranch logo in the center cap. They're really good looking wheels, and despite being 22-inch wheels, they still look pretty small on this vehicle. And finally, on the side, we'll take a look at the fuel filler. Now, this isn't specific to the Expedition or the King Ranch. This is a Ford thing, but you do have the capless fuel filler, which I think is great. You don't have to worry about pulling off the cap and having it dangle around or anything. Just stick the gas hose in there and fill it up. And we'll talk more about the fuel efficiency of this, but it does have a nice big gas tank, and you get somewhere close to 450 miles per tank. So while you won't be filling it up too much, it isn't the cheapest thing to fill up, obviously. All right, now for the rear of the vehicle, you see you got those LED tail lamps. You can see that the rear windows kind of curve all the way into the rear of the vehicle. Really nice design touch there. You have the chrome strip that goes across the entire back with the Expedition stamped into it, and you can see the Max badge on the side of that, and of course that King Ranch badge down at the lower left-hand corner. We also do have a towing package on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we check out the engine. But first, let's check out the cargo area. So this is a very versatile setup. It was designed with families in mind. You do have the kick under for the pop of the hatch, or you can hit a button here, or of course there's a button on the remote or buttons inside. And once you're opened up here, you do have a ton of cargo space, especially in this Max. So behind those third row seating, you have 37.8 cubic feet of cargo space. Now, to compare this to something like the Volkswagen Atlas, which I own and has one of the largest cargo areas behind the third row, that thing has 20 cubic feet. This thing 37.8, so definitely a lot of cargo area, which came in handy for our road trip. If you fold that third row down, your second row has 80.5 cubic feet. And if you fold that second row down behind the first row, you have a total of 121 cubic feet of cargo space. And again, the Max gives you 16.9 cubic feet more than the standard Expedition. So if you want to know those cargo volumes, take those numbers and subtract them by 16.9. And if you're standing back here and wanting to access more of that cargo space, but you don't want to climb in and fold those seats down, you have these one-touch power folding options here, where you can, with just one touch, start lowering those third row seats. And you can flop down those second row seats. Again, really great feature. A lot of thought put into this for families and actually being able to use every bit of cargo space. You also get a little bit of a cubby down here, and this is where your spare tire tools are. And as the second row just flops down, it's not a power down, so you have to go and manually put those up, but you can one touch put the third row up, which again is a great convenience feature. All right, and with that, let's go check out what's under the hood. All right, so as far as the engine options, you only get one engine option no matter what trim you pick. But except if you get the Platinum, you get a power bump. This one is the EcoBoost with 375 horsepower, 470 foot-pounds of torque. And that's plenty to move this big vehicle around. All that's matched up to a 10-speed select shift automatic transmission and gives you fuel economy numbers of 17 miles per gallon city, 24 miles per gallon highway, and 20 miles per gallon combined. I'll talk a little bit about what I saw as a result of driving this for the full week when we get to the driving section of this review. But before we move on, this also has best-in-class towing capabilities as long as you have that heavy-duty towing package enabled, and that'll allow you to tow up to 9,300 pounds. All right, and with that, let's keep this train rolling. Let's check out the interior, starting with the very rear seats. All right, so first of all, getting back here into the third row is not that big of a deal, and you get best-in-class leg room back here, which is pretty good. This is a 3-passenger seat here, and no matter if I'm behind a seat or whatever, I have plenty of leg room, foot room. I am 6'1", so I'm a little bit cramped, and the roof line is a little bit low for me, so I wouldn't want to take long trips in here, but the kids had no problems. And you got power reclining seats, so you can push a button here and recline this back seat. That helps out with the headroom. And you get USB ports back here for charging devices. Great stuff for kids. All right, moving up into the second row here, again, plenty of room for even a 6'1" adult like myself. I have a ton of knee room, a ton of feet room, nice shoulder room, plenty of headroom. Now you can get this configured with a bench here, so this can be an 8-passenger vehicle, or we have the captain's chairs, which makes it a 7-passenger vehicle. I actually prefer the captain's chairs here because I don't have the need for an 8-passenger, but if you do, this thing can be configured that way. And again, you get amenities like USB charging. your own AC controls here, and you can actually control the audio system up front through controls back here. You also have a full plug back here and an accessory port. And again, for families, there's a lot of great conveniences back here. You get a lot of cup holders, which is great. A lot of little storage bins, which is great. You can get screens built into the headrest of the seats, which we don't have, but it is available. And of course, you get this panoramic sunroof, which I usually don't have open, but I'm using it for this review because it's so dark back here. And we actually use it during the week. Like I said, this was 4th of July weekend. Obviously, with the situation going on around the world with the virus, we didn't want to be in large crowds, but we went and parked and opened the moonroof and let the kids kind of poke their heads out every once in a while. And we watched a nice firework display that way. All right, with that, let's jump out and jump into the front seat, talk about the interior there, talk about some of the technology, and then we'll take it for a drive. All right, so obviously this is the King Ranch. It has a beautiful interior with these leather King Ranch seats and the King Ranch logo stitched in. I'm not always a fan of the King Ranch look in the F-150, but here in this thing, I think it looks really good. The brown leather is a dark brown and doesn't contrast too much with the black extra accents. And then you have a light brown stitching and light brown for the King Ranch logo. Definitely one of the better King Ranch interiors that I've seen from Ford. Now these seats are super comfortable. They're also heated and ventilated seats. So obviously the ventilated seats were extremely nice in this Texas heat, but also when I tweaked my back, it was nice to put that heated seat on and get a little bit of heat going there. But of course in the winter time, heated seats would be really great as well. You also have a nice leather wrapped steering wheel. It's the basic Ford steering wheel, but it is a heated steering wheel as well. So you do have all the basic controls here. You have volume and channel switching for your radio. You have a mute function, which is great, a call function, some phone functions down here, a voice assist function down here. On this side, you can scroll through the driver's menu, which we'll talk about in a second. You also have your cruise control down here, and this is a radar guided cruise control, which is really good, and I used a lot during our road trip. We do have the B&O 12 speaker audio system, which is just fine for this vehicle. We were definitely jamming out to some tunes on our road trip, so no issues there. And obviously, like we've already touched on, the panoramic sunroof. Now these are definitely options that I would normally just skip, although it did come in handy during this trip. Like I said, the kids were able to see the fireworks overhead. My youngest son was able to stick his head out the sunroof and kind of get that view of it. So it worked out here, but here in Texas, I almost never open them because the sun is so harsh. Again, nice in this situation because it's so dark in here because of the clouds. I'm able to open it up and get a little bit more light for this video, but you do have the panoramic sunroof in this vehicle. Moving along here to the console, you get that nice King Ranch logo here. Plenty of room down in there. You can see I got it trashed out with receipts and napkins and stuff from our trip. Down here we have our drive modes, so you can scroll through, select normal, eco, a sport mode, a tow haul mode, mud and ruts mode, sand mode, grass, gravel and snow mode, and back to normal. This is the 4-wheel drive, so you got a 2 high option, a 4 auto option, a 4 low, and a locker. We also have our park sensors and park assist, which I never really use, but I'm sure they work just fine because they work well in a lot of other Ford vehicles. You also have the rotary gear shifter, which I'm completely okay with. It all works out well, and it keeps you from having a big shifter in the center console. You also get some cup holders here, or you can cover it up with the nice wood finishing. Down here you get USB and USB Type-C ports, along with a wireless charging pad. And my biggest gripe about this wireless charging pad is that it's a little bit awkward to put your phone down there, but once you get it fit down there, it works just fine. But if you remove this little extra piece here, it will never sit up on that charging pad and stay there. Over here again, you get a 12-volt accessory port. You get all your AC controls down here. This is a tri-zone system, so you have your driver, passenger, and rear all on different systems. Up here you get some of your radio controls, physical buttons. We're going to skip the screen for a second and move up here. This is a hill descent control, traction control, emergency warning lights, lane keeping assist button, automatic on off for your engine, and a button to turn your cameras on. I love having a physical button to turn your cameras on. That way when you're parking, you don't even have to put it in reverse or anything. You can just hit the button, look at the cameras, and know where you are. So let's check that out really quick. So it does have those 360 cameras that I talked about earlier. You have different views that you can go through here. This is looking at the front camera. And again, if you fold in your side mirrors with a touch of a button, you still get an undistorted view around the vehicle because those cameras are on the side of the vehicle basically and not the mirror itself. Moving down a bit, you do have your trailer controller. This does have the tow haul package. So you have your trailer controller here and your trailer controller here. Also, while we're over here, you do have a push button start. And on the other side of the vehicle, you have a couple extra buttons for folding seats, for lifting the lift gate, your light controls here. You have your pedals that can go back and forth to fit your size, and your emergency parking brake. Next up is our instrument cluster here, and this has the analog RPM and speed gauges with an 8-inch center display. And this can be transferred through from a lot of different features here. So you got your towing, your vehicle information, your trip, fuel, and your My menu. You also have an off-road menu and different settings here. And this is our trip computer from the week that we've had it. You can see we've driven 346 miles since we started our road trip, and we've averaged 16.7 miles to the gallon during the full week that we've had it. Next up is our infotainment display here. You have navigation. You have a lot of different audio settings, and it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in. So I did mention that we used the radar guided cruise control a lot in this vehicle, and we do have a full Ford Co-Pilot 360 safety features. Those include pre-collision assist with automatic emergency braking, a blind spot info system with cross traffic alerts, an auto high beam headlamps, something I don't really like. I don't really like those auto high beam headlamps, especially going through the country. Turning on and turning off and turning on and turning off. Usually just the regular headlamps are fine for me. You get lane keeping assist system and that rear view camera that we already checked out. All right, guys, and with that, I think it's time to take this thing for a drive and talk about how it drives. And then we'll get into the price and competition, and we'll wrap this thing up. All right, and like I said, we put quite a few miles on this vehicle. We did take it on a road trip. It wasn't a super far road trip, but enough to really give you a good sense of how this thing feels. And at the end of the day, this is just a great driving vehicle. It's smooth, it's comfortable, you get all the amenities and luxuries that you would want and need. That radar guided cruise control, again, is great for long road trips, getting up on the highway, and the system works really well. Fuel economy on this, like you saw, we're averaging 16.7 miles to the gallon. That's a little bit unfair for this thing because we did have it sitting idle for a long time as we were watching fireworks. We did go through a park driving at 5 miles an hour for about 2 hours long. While we were up on the highways doing highway travel, I was averaging just over 20 miles to the gallon. So not quite at their 24 that they claim, but a lot better than that 16.7 might have you believe. So if you're buying a big vehicle like this for your family, just know it's not the most fuel efficient. You shouldn't be buying it necessarily for that, but as far as big vehicles go, it is pretty fuel efficient for a big vehicle. Day-to-day driving is just fine. You do have that large fuel tank, and you get a lot of miles per tank, which is very nice, especially for road trips. But all in all, I think it's a really great vehicle for families, for road trips, or even just an executive hauler. Of course, if you're going executive, I probably wouldn't get the Max because you probably won't be using that third row as much. And when you fold that third row down, it's a lot of room in this thing. I definitely could have some nitpicks, and I'll touch on those in just a second. But all in all, you can't really fault this thing for being what it is. It's a great vehicle, and stacking up to the competition, there's not even much that competes with it. We'll talk about that again in just a second. And we'll talk about the price in just a second, but if I had the money for this thing, I would definitely consider buying this for my family hauler. I guess with that, we can pull back over and talk about the price and competition. All right, guys, so as we've already alluded to here, this is a pricey beast. The base price for the very base Expedition is $52,810. A King Ranch base price, not for the Max, is $72,895. The base for the Max King Ranch is $75,590. The total MSRP of what we're sitting in here with all of our extras is $81,680. And this is not even the most expensive version that you can get. Again, there is a Platinum Max out there that can cost even more money. If you want to talk about a little bit of gripes with this vehicle, for that kind of money, you are getting a kind of small screen. You're probably not getting as much technology as you might want. You're basically paying for all of this room and then this nice King Ranch interior. But during my road trip, none of that really mattered. It was a very comfortable, very nice vehicle. I never found myself wanting something that I didn't have. But if you were going to live with this day to day and pay that much money, there might be some extras that you would want. But I'm very happy that it had the 360 camera, very happy with the Apple CarPlay, very happy with the driver's info display. It would be nice to have a heads-up display on this thing so you didn't have to look down to know your speed and stuff like that. Especially when you're out on the highway just cruising, but Ford doesn't really put those in their vehicles, so I understand that. If you're looking at competition, really the only thing that competes with the Expedition are the big vehicles from GM. So you have the Chevy Tahoe, the Chevy Suburban, the GMC Yukon, Yukon Denali, the Yukon XL competes with this Max, and those are just as pricey as this, with probably around the same amount of technology. You might get a little bit newer technology here in the Ford, but Chevy's doing a great job, especially in those vehicles with their interiors, and they've just updated, and I haven't driven one of them yet, so I'm interested in doing that. Speaking of updating, I can't go through this whole video without talking about the all-new F-150. Ford showed it off. We watched the whole intro. We did a whole video on it on our second channel, on our news channel. Definitely go check that out. I'll try to leave it up in the iCards or the description if you're interested in hearing more about the new F-150. But what makes me excited about that announcement is usually a couple of years after they do the new F-150, they start putting that technology into the Expedition. So you won't see it for a 2021, but maybe 2022, you might get that new bigger screen. You might get the folding console. You might get the full LCD driver display, a lot of those nice conveniences and technology that go into that F-150 can easily be put into a new Expedition. So we're looking forward to that coming pretty soon. But let me jump out, give you my final take, and we'll wrap this video up. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I really did enjoy the Expedition for my week with it. The family enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun in this thing during the week. So of course I didn't have much bad to say about it, but for a family, I think it's a really great vehicle. The biggest thing with this, like we already talked about, is the price, but if you can afford it, I think it is definitely worth it. So with that, please hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the Expedition. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.